No, 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 no.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and you just hate to see it. You just hate to see it. Oh, they pandered so hard to China, and the box office has been a complete flop. It's almost like Get Woke, Go Broke is real. Again, I hope you had a wonderful weekend. I know I didn't, but that's okay. It was just a very long and busy one, putting away things for fall in Wisconsin. But overall, I enjoyed unplugging a little bit from the internet. Now, Mulan dropped in China, and it was supposed to save the film. A $200 million budget, plus let's say another $200 million in marketing. That's what the box office norm is. Means they've got a $400 million nut to crack to break even. Now, we don't know what the sales were on Disney Plus yet, and I suspect if they were good, they will release them. If they weren't good, they won't release them, and we haven't seen anything yet. What we do know is that Mulan flops in China with a poor $23 million weekend. This is, of course, on the heels of China getting big mad that Western press had a problem with their little re-education camps for the Uyghur Muslims. And so they banned all local press from covering it. But even then, nobody went to see this movie. There are a lot of people who probably feel like, well, if the government doesn't approve of this thing, then we shouldn't go see it. I can't blame them for feeling that way because the CCP is an oppressive regime. But let's take a look at this. And by the way, today I've got Star Wars news. I've got YouTube news. I've got Mulan news. I've got Twitch news. I cover a wide variety of topics on this channel. I hope today will be the day I earn your subscription. There's a little red button right below the video. If you click it now, I'll be very thankful. That way you'll get notified when I upload, and it'll make finding my videos easier. This via Scott Mendelson on Forbes. Walt Disney's Mulan couldn't compete in a landscape now filled with genuine Chinese blockbusters and genuine comic book superhero movies. Mulan debuted in China with $23 million on its opening weekend, with little hope that the film will leg out beyond the often standard 2 to 2.2 multiplier for Hollywood releases. We're looking at a Chinese total between 46 and 50 million. Now, to be fair, that's the second biggest Hollywood debut of 2020, behind Tenet, also somewhat soft with 30 million. And under normal circumstances, Disney wouldn't necessarily be chasing the Chinese box office with any additional fervor. When Aladdin grosses $353 million in North America, it's less of an issue when it grosses $53 million in China. But with Mulan's domestic theatrical release canceled in favor of middling at best Disney Plus PVOD release, and the film seemingly greenlit with the intent of doing well in China, yeah, $23 million is a disaster. To be fair, Nick Caro's Mulan would have likely notched a good to great global theatrical release had it opened in March, complete with global theaters running at conventional capacity, even while I've noted for a while that the film wasn't going to be an automatic breakout in China just because it features an all-Asian cast. The $200 million action spectacular would play well in North America and good enough internationally. It didn't necessarily have to crush it in China. Whether Disney greenlit the film in 2015 with dreams of Transformers: Age of Extinction or merely Avatar, the intent was to score globally an extent that even Iron Man 3 would have been an acceptable in comparison. However, in a broader sense, the final project, which turned Mulan into a superhero Jedi and seemed more aimed at pleasing Chinese government officials than entertaining Chinese moviegoers, seemed like misreading of what works in China's theatrical landscape. First, yes, the notion of local Chinese blockbuster was mostly theatrical in early 2015, with Journey to the West earning $197 million. But over the next 5 years, Monster Hunt, The Mermaid, Wolf Warrior 2, Detective Chinatown 2, The Wandering Earth changed the landscape in terms of what Chinese moviegoers would expect from non-Hollywood biggies. By 2020, a big-budget action spectacle starring Chinese actors was just another big movie. Meanwhile, the likes of Godzilla King of the Monsters $135 million and Alita Battle Angel $133 million and Pokemon $93 million struggled against Marvel franchises' ill-advised sequels, earning under $65 million. It wasn't part of an existing franchise, which it was one of those doomed to take the superhero property and make it into a superhero movie film. Again, in a normal year, with a normal release slate, a soft performance for Mulan in China would have been bitterly ironic, but not a death sentence. With 37 million worldwide and still unknown premium VOD numbers, it's been hovering between 5th place and 10th place on Disney Plus trending titles, along with mixed word. What looked at the beginnings of the year like Disney's biggest 2020 grossers is probably going to be a financial disaster. The failure of Mulan in China isn't much of a surprise, both due to the current Chinese theatrical landscape and the final product playing painfully square for an audience of more on-screen lunacy. That's something to keep in mind as Marvel's Shang-Chi continues production. If you're going east, don't be afraid to go weird. I think, for one, smash like on this video now if you just hate to see the backfire. I mean, if you love it, if you love it, click like on the video now. This via bonding into comics. Despite their working relationship with the Chinese government during production in the film, Disney's live-action Mulan remake has failed in its opening weekend in China. According to Deadline, it grossed $52 million, which is just 8.26 million, 52 million local currency, 8.26 million on its opening on Friday. Yes, the lockdown is relevant, but also this is a beautiful end cap to pandering. And speaking of pandering, Disney has now responded after facing scrutiny for where part of Mulan was filmed. Mulan's bumpy ride from the page to the screen, in theory, this is via Cinema Blend. When Deadline asked Disney CFO Christine McCarthy about the scrutiny over the filming location and its impact on the film's reception, she was straightforward. Quote, "I'm not a box office prognosticator, but it has generated a lot of publicity. And let me just put something into context. The real facts are that Mulan was primarily filmed almost entirely in New Zealand. In an effort to accurately depict some of the unique landscape and geography of the country of China for this period drama, we filmed scenery in 20 different locations in China. It's common knowledge that in order to film in China, you have to be granted permission. That permission comes from its central government." She goes on to say, "It's common practice to acknowledge in a film's credits the national and local governments that allowed you to film there. So in our credits, it recognized both China and locations in New Zealand. I would just leave it at that, but it has generated a lot of issues for us." This is not the only issue Mulan has faced in regards to the Chinese government. In 2019, fans online organized Boycott Mulan hashtag after the film's star expressed support for the Hong Kong police amidst widespread demonstrations for democracy within the region. Mulan also saddled with numerous logistical issues, including costly reshoots and COOF-related restrictions. Despite the myriad of issues Mulan has faced, many critics praise the movie, and early data seems to indicate it's found an audience on Disney+. Well, all we can really know with Disney Plus is how is it doing compared to Hamilton. And this was on Saturday. After the movie Mulan gets released, usually we examine how the box office performance goes. Mulan costs $30 to view on Disney Plus subscription before it heads to the streaming library later this year. So how did it do this week? Since Disney has not revealed specific figures, it's not an easy task to measure the success of Mulan. The movie currently number 6 on the streaming services trending tab, but there's a few ways we can gauge the performance. Earlier this week, Mulan was number 1, and according to the streaming guide Real Good, the movie has a 15% share among all titles streamed out of 2 million users who access VOD platform through Real Good. In comparison, Hamilton, in its first weekend, had nearly 10% share. Bill and Ted, 5. Theoretically, it's a large sample for the service could indicate Mulan is a success for the studio. Another piece of data from Sensor Tower tracked the amount of downloads of the Disney Plus app in the week of Mulan's release against the week prior. According to TechCrunch, Mulan install rates were up 68%, and consumer spending within the app grew 193% during that week as well. In other words, Disney Plus saw a lot more money roll in during Mulan's opening weekend. It's interesting, you know, part of it, I think, is people that are still locked down, there are people, by the way, out there now that will just never go back to the movie theaters, probably ever again. I don't think I'm one of those people, but it's not the worst thing to be a really average movie right now, because even I found myself looking through like Amazon Prime, like, what's out? You know, like $20 for Bill and Ted, that's a lot. But it's kind of like, whatever. I want to see something new. And you kind of talk yourself into it. So I don't know. And they need $400 million to break even on this film. That's a lot of $30 premium video on demand. And it doesn't look like they're going to gross any more than maybe 75 million worldwide. So that means they're going to have to make up $300+ million on Disney Plus. And ooh, I hope they don't. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.